whom she had disliked on sight, had been an ex-aerialist with a circus, an ex-marine, an ex-homicide detective, and ex-several other things. The two of them, however, had been thrown together in a bizarre case that had become known as the Silo Adventure. Dani and Savage, along with 11 other people, had been captured and kept in an empty grain silo. The maniac who had accomplished all this was a wealthy man named Maxwell Stone, and it had required all of Dani's intelligence and Ben's acrobatic and physical ability to make their escape from the silo. Since that episode, Dani and Ben had fallen into a strange partnership, a love-hate relationship that neither of them liked, but for some reason neither of them could walk away from. Most of their vitriolic arguments centered around Dani's character. Savage insisted that she was trying to be a man, while Dani countered with the charge that he was threatened by her ability. The present argument had begun over something as trivial as the newly decorated offices that housed the agency. The Ross Investigation Agency was located on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Once the setting had seemed romantic to Dani, but parking was a nightmare and the tourists flocked like lemmings to the area, hoping to get involved in sinful pursuits. But after the publicity of the Silo Adventure, many clients had sought the agency out, and Dani had decided to redecorate the offices instead of moving to a more reputable section of the city. Savage had been absent for almost a week, prowling around, doing his usual sleuthing. When he'd come in and first seen the newly decorated offices, he said brusquely, "I don't like it. It's too fancy." Dani had been stung by this, since she herself had overseen the decorations. She said between gritted teeth, "You never had any taste. If you had liked the redecoration, I'd have had it ripped all out." Savage lifted one raven black eyebrow in a quizzical expression. "I think you should." "What's wrong with it?" "Poor clients will feel inhibited." "They'll be impressed." "No, they won't. They'll feel out of place. But then maybe you don't want any poor clients." "And what kind of crack is that, Ben?" Dani demanded, her eyes turning more green as they tended to do when she grew angry. "What's wrong with a few trappings of success?" "It's like restaurants," Savage said abruptly. "Restaurants? What's like restaurants? Oh, you have a mind like a butterfly. It flits all over the place." "Well, when you go out to eat, you can either have good food or you can have fancy decor." "You can have both." "No, you can't." Dani glared at Savage and shook her head. "It's impossible to get any culture into you, Ben Savage, so I'm going to stop trying." "Good," Ben said. "Now down to business." "And what about the Anderson case?" Savage shrugged and said, "Well, I think I've got that about nailed down." Dani waited for him to go on, but when he said nothing, she exclaimed, "Oh, what do you mean, nailed down? What have you done?" The James Anderson case involved a middle-aged man who had been injured in an industrial accident. He was a family man with 4 young children and had been, perhaps, permanently crippled. His insurance company insisted that it was the fault of the company Anderson worked for, claiming they had not observed safety precautions. The company, of course, denied this, and the insurance company retained the Ross agency to prove their claim. Dani had little hope of uncovering the truth, for it had been quickly discovered that, as always, employees were not quick to speak out. Most were afraid for their jobs, and some just didn't care. Going back to her desk, Dani sat down and put her hands flat on the glass surface. She wore a beautiful turquoise ring on the middle finger of her right hand, and she examined it for a moment, and then looked up. "What are we going to do? We can't go to court without more evidence." "Oh, I have a witness," Ben said. "He works at the Brady company where the accident occurred, and I think with a little encouragement he'd be willing to testify." "Well, he'd be afraid of losing his job." "Not this one. He's not crazy about his work." "Give me his name, Ben. I want to talk to him myself."